Steelers 26, Giants 18. Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. The Giants move to 1-15, or Daniel Jones moves to 1-15 on prime time. The Giants fall to 2-6, and they currently have the 9th pick in the NFL draft. 9 more games. Justin, what's up, dude?
Did you ask me how I'm doing?
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying what's up, dude.
Oh, what's up, dude? Can I go off for a second?
Go off. What are you going off for?
Oh, well, I'm not gonna yell and hoot and holler, but maybe I'm a week too late. But I'm ready, man. I'm ready. How many more times do we need to see the same thing over and over again? I've had it. I need it to be different. I need to evaluate something different. The team needs a different energy, and I'm ready to bench Daniel Jones. I've reached my breaking point. I think with the left tackle debacle, it's very okay to publicly use the injury clause as maybe a justification. But at this point, half their games the Giants have scored one or less offensive touchdowns in the game. I think there's a clear justification for a benching here, and I also want to be clear that Daniel Jones is not the only problem here, even though I feel like if the QB was more reliable and explosive, maybe some of these other problems go away or aren't as big of a deal. But Brian Daboll has had his bad moments this year as coach, including what the hell was that 2-point attempt? We're going to talk about that. Receivers continue to drop the ball in key moments. All year, they had 9 offensive penalties, most of them being procedural and pre-snap. And
You're taking all my damn notes.
And like I said, Andrew Thomas and that left tackle being out, the most important tackle spot is just a disaster again. So there's a lot wrong with this team, Bobby. In my opinion, it starts with a quarterback. It certainly doesn't end with him. I can't do it. I cannot go to MetLife Stadium against the Commanders next Sunday and watch Daniel Jones score one offensive touchdown again. Because you want to know what? I'd be more content watching Drew Lock score one offensive touchdown next week. I can't do it. Can't do it anymore, man. And I know it could get worse, blah, blah, blah. I need something different. I need a different energy. I've had it. I can't do it.
They should just use the injury clause as a just. I just want to keep debating Daniel Jones versus Drew Lock. That's something that I really enjoy doing.
It's not even about Daniel Jones versus Drew Lock for me anymore, though. Even though it should be, but
it's so much fun to debate that.
I know. I just, again, how many times do we need to see the same thing over and over again? And Giants fans have watched this game before. We've seen this same exact game unfold. A game in which the offense isn't necessarily performing well, but they're not also at the same time performing terrible. But they're in the game and the defense is keeping them in the game, and the defense forces a turnover late, and they shouldn't be in the game, but they are, and they have an opportunity to tie it, and they're driving down the field, and it's like, oh, well, I just have zero belief that the Giants are going to do anything with this opportunity, and they didn't. But there was a lot of moments that obviously led to that to begin with anyway, and it's not just on the quarterback, it's on a lot of other people too. But again, I feel like if the quarterback elevates everybody else, we're not talking about those little things as much.
Yeah, obviously, Daniel Jones is not good. I think we've established that at this point.
Yeah.
It's what's going to be interesting for me is how they wade through the waters this week, because I don't necessarily think this performance is going to be the one that sends Brian Daboll over the tipping point to do it. Even though if there was ever any time to do it, it would be now against 2 defenses who aren't very good in the Commanders and Panthers, and then a bye week. But Brian Daboll threw Daniel Jones under the bus in his post game press conference, and this comes a week after he pulled him from a game. Is how many times will they do this back and forth until it gets there, and I want to break down this game and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it comes down to crunch time. Those final 2 drives, the last one, the interception at the end of the game, that's just an awful panic throw. Throw the ball to Theo or don't overthrow your running back and you live for the next down. Still probably don't win the game, but that's just an ugly, ugly throw. And then the strip sack actually, this is where Brian Daboll threw him under the bus.
Oh yeah.
It's rare to see a head coach do this. No matter what the circumstances are, because he was asked like, why didn't you tip TJ Watt? So he's like, well, I'm not taking the blame for that. He said, well, we were supposed to. We were supposed to have a shift over there. DJ kind of got his eyes, like, realized what he had said and tried to, like, not go into deeper detail of it to throw DJ under the bus, but basically started to do it and then was asked to clarify what he meant. And he said, well, we were supposed to shift Theo Johnson over to Jermaine Illuminor, and he was expecting a chip, but Daniel Jones kind of got lost, getting ready for the coverage pre-snap, and he takes full responsibility for that. He feels awful about it, but just threw him under the bus. So, I mean, we all know it's coming eventually, but it's just, will this be the tipping point? But I want to talk about this game as a whole. Like, you know what? We're not doing mailbag Daniel Jones versus Drew Lock. Bench him for the injury guarantee. You're 2-6. There's no chance of salvaging this season. But we'll see, because will they, behind the scenes, Brian Dable views him as the better quarterback. Like, that's the reality of it. So will he make will he make what he believes, whether you believe it or not, what Brian Dable believes is Drew Lock is a lesser QB? Will he make the move to a lesser QB with 9 games left? Like, I think that's what we forget. There's 9 games left. That's over half the football season. But I mean, this was like a typical Daniel Jones New York Giants primetime game over the last 6-7 years, where it's like they keep you in it, end of the game, and then, that's when all the bad shit happens.
And you want to remove yourself emotionally from the game too, Bobby. Like, I was ready. The Steelers, I think the Steelers at one point had an opportunity to go up by 2 scores, and the Giants...
They were up 2 scores. They were up 2, I think they were up 2 touchdowns, right? And then the Giants scored a touchdown, then they kicked a field goal, and then the Giants went down and kicked a field goal after that.
I know that there was a point where they were down by 10, and the Steelers were up by 7, and then they kicked a field goal to go up by 10, and that's when I was, in a way, I'm like, all right, let's just end this. Like, let me emotionally just remove myself from this game. And it's like, no, and even the Steelers kicked that field goal to go up 10 late, and it's like, all right, well, it's over.
Well, they were up 2 touchdowns with 13 minutes left, and then the Giants scored, and then they kicked that field goal.
Yeah. So, typical. Like, we've seen this. I think I said last week to start off the game recap is Groundhog Day, and yeah, this again, I feel like almost every single loss that we've had this year, maybe besides the Washington one, since that was so unique, because we literally scored more touchdowns and did way more things than Washington, and they still won the game. But yeah, man, we've seen this loss before, and whether it's the interception to end the game, I mean, I know I keep going back to Jones, and like I said, there's so many other things besides Jones, but this was my breaking point with Daniel Jones. The interception to end the game, the hospital ball to Darius Slayton, missing him on the sideline, taking back-to-back sacks. This is where I think it really went haywire. Taking back-to-back sacks to start the second half when you have a 2nd and 10 from the Pittsburgh 31-yard line, and you don't get any points from that. I believe you had like a 20-yard play. Maybe it was a 20-yard Tyrone Tracy run in there, and then you're cooking on the opposite side of the 50-yard line, looking to get inside the red zone. There's no guarantee that the Giants are even scoring 7 points inside the red zone, because this was another evening where they went 0 for 3 inside the red zone, and they entered into tonight as the league's 31st ranked team inside the red zone this year. So there's no guarantee they're even scoring 7 there, but they would have maybe gotten 3, you think, if they had a 2nd and 10 from the Pittsburgh 31. And then, like you mentioned, the strip sack when Theo Johnson is supposed to be set in motion. Maybe TJ Watt still gets the sack on that play. Who knows? But I just named you 4 things on Daniel Jones, where even if 1 or 2 of those things are different, maybe the outcome of the game is different. Maybe.
Yeah. And again, like, and this is a game where, like, his deep ball was actually cooking a little bit, right? Like, you hit he had the 2, he went, let's see, what was it? He was 2 for 6. He hit the post to Darius Slayton early in the game, and then Theo up the seam on that last drive. And then the 4 incompletions were the neighbor 1-footer, the defensive pass interference no call on Joey Porter, and then neighbor's drop, and then the one bad one was the Slayton late. I mean, we could break it all down individually, but I don't know. Like, it's like, okay, let's move off Daniel Jones for a second when we come back. Like, all right, let's just say Daniel Jones exists. What's like your most negative takeaway from this game?
oh, that this is a sloppy football team, which, by the way, I mean, score wise, what's the difference in this game? Stupid special teams again, where Calvin Austin goes for a punt touchdown, right? This is a sloppy team that had 9 offensive penalties, most of them being procedural. There was a
I have all the penalties.
The touchdown that was taken, the Chris Manhertz touchdown that was taken off. So go through the penalties, because that's something that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, you have on offense 3 illegal shifts, 2 delay games, 2 false starts, 2 holdings, 1 illegal man downfield. I mean, 10 penalties just on offense. One was declined. 10. So, well, there was one that got declined.
Okay,
doesn't count. And one game you get 10 offensive penalties, and again, 7 of them were procedural. 7. That's crazy. Like you keep having that, and even the 2-point conversion was like could have been a procedural penalty call because they're not getting set, and you saw Daniel Jones lose his mind on that, which I hate that play. I hate that A11 bullshit. Anyways, I cannot stand getting cute on do or die downs.
Run your offense. Like it's the biggest. It's my biggest pet peeve in the game of football, where like professional college teams or NFL teams on like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and short, 3rd and short situations where you have NFL coaches that say all the time, we practice, Brian Dable says it all the time, we practice this situation almost every day, we practice it every week, we practice it all the time. You can't convince me that play that you ran for a 2-point conversion, at the end of the day didn't have an impact on the game, but you can't convince me that play that you tried to run was not a higher probability play than if you were to just line up in your regular offense and run your offense and run a go-to play that you know, Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, whether it's even a run to Tyrone Tracy since that was working, a screen, something different. You can't convince me that was a higher probability play than running your regular normal offense. I can't stand that. Run your offense.
And this is what's going to, like, those are the things, because we, like, at the end, we knew Daniel Jones, this is his last year going into the year. We knew it was his last year going into this game. We knew it was coming out of the game. But it's not, or may not be for Brian Dable. I know Mayer gave his vote of confidence, but we've talked about where that doesn't mean anything with Sean Mayer. If anything, that's a fucking curse. But, like, that stuff will continue. Like, that will be stuff that will be thrown against you, right? Like, I mean, Saleh, kind of, like, that was one of the things on Saleh was, like, all the damn procedural penalties that they have. Now, they've continued for the New York Jets. So, like, that's just, like, it's just sloppy. And it's happened quite a bit this year, too. You know, they've had, you know, like, the Commanders game. Like, there was, you know, Malik Neighbors didn't get set after, like, one big play had. I can't remember exactly what the you know, the consequences of that were for that penalty. So, yeah, they just make a lot of mental mistakes. The receivers drop passes, right? Like, I know Slayton has been the guy known for the drops, but Wan'Dale has had his fair share of drops this year. Malik Neighbors, it's starting to get a little frustrating how many, like, big drops he's had. You know, the Commanders game, that's a win-or-loss drop right there. I know he played amazing, but that's a win-or-loss drop there. You know, the Cowboys game, don't think they win, but the play he got hurt on, that's a drop. And then you have a drop on a deep pass today and the third down. I know the third down one was a little behind him, and, you know, Daniel Jones, you know, had a couple passes behind guys. But, like, that, at the end of the day, you need to catch that, and that's a first down conversion.
Hits him in the chest.
Like, you're the star, so you got to live up to that. So it's just a sloppy mental mistakes. We'll talk about Deonte Banks getting, you know, benched in this game and what will happen with that going forward. But yeah, so I mean, we'll get ready for another week of going at it with Daniel Jones, blah blah blah. Then we'll play the Commanders Panthers. We'll see how that goes. And it's just 9 more games. 9 more games. And it's like I'm just kind of numb to the Giants being this bad in the first half of the season. You know, like this year 2-6, last year 2-6, year before 6-2, that was nice. Year before 2-6, 1-7, 2-6, 1-7, 1-7. I mean, they're 17-47 in the first 8 games of the year since 2017. 17-47. Like, there's just been, again, outside of 1 year, there hasn't just been a lack of success in the first half of seasons. There's been, like, your season's over lack of success in the first half of seasons, unless you get to play in the 2020 NFC East. So, but
That's
rank.
that.
I was gonna say rank Daniel Jones games the last 3 weeks, but that's pointless
No,
at this
don't.
point.
No, no, I refuse.
That'd be a great short.
Yeah,
we're trying to do shorts.
Yeah. Well, here's the frustrating. I'll tell you what the real frustrating thing is that at halftime, Bobby, are you not walking away from the first half saying that Daniel Jones is having because that's where you had the Darius Slayton hospital ball miss. But outside of that throw, are you not walking away from the first half saying that Daniel Jones played a solid half of football, especially considering that they were not running the ball? I think they were averaging maybe even less than 4 yards per carry on the ground in the first half. Tyrone Tracy really didn't have success until the second half. I walked away for the first half saying, I think Daniel Jones played a solid half of football. No?
Yeah, I mean, the running game did work a little bit. They're getting it wasn't like you said in the second half, but they were running the ball decent. But yeah, I mean, he did play fairly well in the first half. You mentioned the Darius Slayton play, but there was missed opportunities by neighbors on the end zone call. And honestly, up until I know we'll talk about those sacks, but at the end, the second down sack, okay, but the third down one, the Steelers actually did a great job of knowing where those block and releases were going to get rid of the outlets. But I don't think the Giants were going to kick a 53-yard field goal regardless, so they're trying to hang in there and get that one. So still a bad play, but not game changing. But yeah, I mean, this wasn't, and it was those 2 turnover plays is what really freaking defined this game as bad. And that's the NFL. Like you when it comes crunch time and you have 2 bad turnover plays, Brian Dable gave us clarity that the strip sack was really bad on him and not just Jermaine Illuminor getting beat by TJ Watt one-on-one. So you get that, and then the interception. That defines a really bad game. But this is what Daniel Jones is. I won't say because we'll see if he plays or not. But it's up and down. You'll have a Seahawks game. You'll have the last 2 games. You'll have a game like this. Then you'll have middle games like the Browns game. It's just what it is.
All right, let me ask you a question before we talk about something, because I do want to talk about Tyrone Tracy in this run game, and that was one of the best parts of this game. So I pulled off the Band-Aid at the start of the show. I said I'm ready. Bench Daniel Jones. I'm done. I know you're saying that you're kind of numb to it, but do you have a definitive choice right now on what do you want as a fan? Don't think as a coach. Don't think of think of what Brian Dable has to get through the season. What do you want Bobby Skinner as a fan for next week against the Commanders?
It hasn't changed really since the mailbag, and this is what gets lost in that little clip of me getting you have to care, is that you should make the move because of the injury guarantee flat out. And that's it. Okay? So and again, I would like the freshness of change, but as trying to do this show, I try to think from what would I do in that situation point of view and not just anger. I know in these times people hate that shit, but I don't care. I'm not going to do that and then feel dumb about being you got to play Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm can make the explosive. I that's just the way I'm going to be. But with the injury guarantee in there, the fact that they're 2-6, 31st in offense, can they be a lot more turnover heavy and missing passes and can't, shit with Drew Lock? Yes, but Drew Lock can also put together a couple nice games against some bad teams. He's done that before in his career. So yeah, and especially with you get these 2 games going. Now, from the coach's point of view, this is where it's if it goes as bad as they think it might with Drew Lock, you can't go back to Daniel Jones. So what do? You come out of the bye week, Drew Lock has 3 bad games, then do you go to Tommy DeVito for the next 6 games? That's why they're not quick to do this.
Right.
That's why they're not. Is because job preservation.
Yeah. So Bobby Skinner, the fan, say the sentence. What
Same
does Bobby
thing as
Skinner
the
want?
mailbag. I would bench Daniel Jones, the main reason being the injury guarantee.
Got it. Would you
the
like
main
me to
reason
talk
being
about
the
something?
injury guarantee, and they're bad. Talk about something.
I will talk to you about something. This episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum of the NFL. The NFL.
What do you
season.
think about the whole why the hell did they not prioritize backup QB more?
I think
does that get you angry that they didn't get?
I mean,
I wanted Jameis more in the. You could have went after Jameis.
Okay, but how many good backup quarterbacks are there? There's not like Drew Lock, believe it or not, despite him being, I think he's not very good, and he's shown to be a disaster through the preseason training camp and the time that we saw him against the Eagles last week. But I think Drew Lock is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that they tried. They may have wanted Tyrod Taylor to come back, but they didn't want to pay him the same price as the Jets did. Tyrod Taylor probably didn't want to come back. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, he didn't want to come back.
I don't think they were going to pay Jameis what he wanted. So,
well, Jameis didn't get paid. That was Jameis is the one where in the moment, I was like, I want this. Now the Russ thing, I don't know exactly what happened. There's like I don't know if it's credibly reported that like the main thing was they didn't give him the opportunity to start or wasn't guaranteed because the Steelers promised him the starting job. I can't remember. Maybe that's something I'll look up for the mailbag pod. But maybe we'll do rank the backup QBs on the mailbag pod.
Well, at the end of the day, they were paying Daniel Jones $40 million. It's at the end of the day, they made their bed with this contract. They made their bed with their decision to pay him $40 million. He was coming off a torn ACL, and like I'm not. You could be a logical fan and be like, well, they should have signed Russell Wilson to come in here to start to compete. Okay, but I'm not going to get mad at their decision to want to start Daniel Jones this year because they were paying him $40 million. I can't. They made their bed. They dug their grave. Not even they made their bed. They dug their grave with Daniel Jones. And we knew this the second that he signed that contract, that this could be a possibility. You weren't going to, unless Tyrod was still here and under contract, I don't think you were going to bring in another quarterback to compete with Daniel Jones while he's making $40 million. I want to talk to you about Captain Morgan, Bobby, really quick. This episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum sponsor of the NFL. The NFL season where legends are born on and off the field, or they die. Ooh, but they're not dying in the Talk of Giants L16 tailgate because, by the way, we will not have an official tailgate next week, even though L16, there'll be still some of us there drinking some Captain Morgan, but no official tailgate next week. It's the first one where we will not be selling tickets. So please don't show up and say I have tickets because we won't be having a tailgate. But Captain Morgan, I love Captain Morgan so much. Grab your crew, grab a captain and cola, make it a story to remember because legends start when you follow the captain. Captain Morgan sponsoring every single episode of Talking Giants this year. If that's not the best reason to go grab yourself a captain and a cola, I don't know what is, because Captain Morgan, they're a bunch of legends because they love us and we love them. Visit followthecaptain.com for more. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York. New York. Bobby Skinner, you will be glad you did. Thank you to Captain Morgan.
You'll be glad you did. What do you want to talk about next? Like, is it the run game? Is Slayton, 100 yards, the offensive line as a whole? Because I'll be honest, I think outside of Chris Hubbard, I think the offensive line did a pretty solid job for what my expectations were. Like, because it's not just T.J. Watt or like they're a pass rushing unit. They get after it. And the official stats are Runyon gave it 3 pressures, JMS 1 hit, Greg Van Roten 1 hit, Eleanor 1 sack, 1 hit. I don't know if he got credit for the other sack because DJ held onto the ball for a long time. Now Chris Hubbard got the start over Josh Azudu. He's also awful, which we knew going into the game. We can do a whole segment on the Giants' plan at swing tackle this offseason and why thinking that Josh Azudu was going to be that was a deadly mistake, and they benched him after one game doing it. So Chris Hubbard was really, really bad, and they had to help him a ton. But I actually think the rest of the guys, like, I didn't feel like DJ was just under siege all freaking game long. Like they had the 4 sacks, 2 on that one drive, the strip sack with, not bringing Theo Johnson over. But he threw the ball 38 times in this game, completed, had 264 passing yards. Like this wasn't the passing offense we had come to know without Andrew Thomas over the last few years.
No, and I think what was most impressive, Bobby, is that against a very good run defense, Tyron Tracy averaged 20 attempts, 145 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, had that 45-yard rushing touchdown that basically kind of got the Giants back in the game. And in total, Devin Singletary had 2 attempts for 11 yards as well. But in total, they had 25 attempts on the ground for 157 yards for an average of 6.3 yards per carry tonight. I think that was the most encouraging part and aspect to come out of tonight, is that Brian Daboll, especially in the second half, saw them commit to the run a little bit more. If you commit to the run, it's going to help you out on early downs. It's going to help you out on late downs if you're better on early downs and you're not always throwing from these third and longs and you're not always dealing with these second and longs or even turning the... It's a little risky sometimes to run on second and long, but when you're dealing with offensive line issues and quarterback issues, I think running the ball on second and long is not always the worst thing. At least if you could turn a 2nd and 7 into a 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 3, that makes your life a lot easier, right? So I thought the Giants did exactly that. And also, it wasn't even just for the whole third down effect, because I looked, especially in the second half, I don't think the Giants' effective rushing game really helped them out that much on late downs. They actually did a pretty solid job on some of their drives avoiding third down altogether, which that's the whole freaking point, is that if you run the ball well, and if you're able to get some explosive plays or some plays of 10 plus yards, they got 2 rushing plays of 25 plus yards today. You're able to avoid third down altogether. And that's the best way to have a third down offense, is when you avoid third down altogether. Shout out Peyton Manning. So that was the most encouraging thing, Bobby. Were you able to get a good sense of how they attacked the Steelers, the Steelers defense, from like whether it was, I actually thought I saw some zone plays being run. Like one of the bigger plays that the Giants offense had was a zone play where all of the offensive linemen were kind of flowing right to one side, and Tracy was just able to run right up the middle, and there was a wide open hole.
And that's why Tracy gives you more juice in the zone game than Devin Singletary, because he does have that cutback ability, that speed and burst to make those plays. You know, and you think about, like you mentioned, the stat line of 20 totes for 145 yards. He had a bullshit holding call on John Runyon take a 20-yarder off the board.
Yeah.
Like, this was their best rushing game against the second best rushing defense in the NFL. Like, they're a really good run defense, and they were just able to get, like, you know, pop off games. Like, Tracy's in concussion protocol, but like, man, he's been fun to watch. Like, he's been 4 starts now. You know, he had the Seahawks game. You know, last week they didn't get much going, and then what was the Bengals game in between? But like, they even had a little bit of success. They didn't run the ball a lot in that game. And then this game, like, Giants hopefully got themselves a nice little 5th round, you know, running back out of them who can, you know, be a starter for the next 4 years for them. I know he's 25, so he's not someone you give a second contract. But like, that's a nice, you know, spot to be in for them. And I thought the offensive line did a good job outside of Chris Hubbard. Like, I know the Jermaine Eleanor, you know, 2 sacks will get you, but like, I am not gonna be mad at that player giving up sacks to TJ Watt. I'm just not gonna be. As long as, like, I was hoping like that he didn't get beat like a drum consistently. He did not. Now Chris Hubbard on the opposite side did. You know, I know JMS had a bad play in the run game, but like, he didn't, like, you didn't see any negatives really in pass protection from the interior of the offensive line, and they were given more responsibility because of the you know, the help that the Giants tried to give on the offensive tackle. So that was good to see. Like, there's one thing I'm excited about to go watch after this game. It is to see Tyrone Tracy and what this run game was able to do.
Tyrone Tracy on the year is averaging 5.15 yards per carry. I can imagine the success rate is nearing 50%, because heading into tonight, it was 47.2% success rate. And yards per game heading into tonight was 33. I can imagine it's got to be up past 50, right? Tonight, you know, with his 145 yard effort. So, you know,
the field goal, the last field goal drive that the Giants had, that 17-yard run was like a nice 8-9 yarder, and he just keeps his feet churning.
Yep.
Moving, getting his shoulders going. And, you know, added like yak on that play. You know, he had a 26-yard run on a 2nd and 10. You know, you see the burst on the 45-yard touchdown. Like, he's fun to watch, and he gives you more juice than what Devin Singletary does. Like, he took that starting role, and he's absolutely kept it. You know, one of my worries is that it was just going to be, you know, versus light boxes, he'd be good. When it gets muddied, he'd have issues and you know, bounce when he wasn't supposed to or be hesitant. He hasn't shown that at all. So, and as the Giants try and get through a season, I think the run game is going to be extremely important for that. Like it might be as the Giants' run game goes, the New York Giants go. You want to know a historical Giants stat?
Please.
Darius Slayton has moved into the top 20 to 19th in all-time Giants receiving yards.
Talked about this on the PPP this year.
Passing Plaxico Burress and Mark Bavaro. And he's only like 18 yards away from 18th.
Yeah.
Back-to-back 100-yard games versus the Steelers for Darius Slayton. He's only 78. I know Neighbors missed 2 games. But, like, he's only 78 yards behind Neighbors for the team lead. Could you imagine? Imagine if he leads the team. It's not going to happen.
Don't say that, please. This isn't because I don't like Darius Slayton. This is because I like Malik Neighbors. Let's not have another year where Darius Slayton beats out Malik Neighbors, please.
No. But, like, is there any debate, like, who the better receiver is right now, Darius Slayton or Wan'Dale Robinson?
Did you hear?
Very happy they didn't force feed Wan'Dale in this game either.
Did you hear what Belichick said on the Manning cast?
No, I didn't watch the I can't watch Manning cast for Giants games.
So I had the regular broadcast on my computer because my computer is slightly ahead than my cable, but I wanted to grab just on my phone if I saw that Belichick or Manning, if any of them did anything crazy. Like I got Eli Manning doing the sexy Dexy dance. So I wanted to have it on my TV just to grab in case they did anything crazy. So I want to pull this up. So Bill Belichick called Darius Slayton just as dangerous and explosive as Malik Neighbors on the Manning cast, particularly when he was talking about on the deep ball. But he brought it up a couple times saying, like you have to account for Darius Slayton in similar ways that teams have to account for Malik Neighbors. And he kind of repeated that point a couple times. And then Slayton has some nice plays throughout the game, had some nice plays throughout the first half when Belichick was on, and Belichick was kind of just talking about it over and over again. So people took that and ran with it, being like, see, Belichick's out of the game and he doesn't really know it. But it's like, well, I wouldn't say that. I thought it was just Bill Belichick knowing ball.
Yeah. Bill be saying some things. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really like Slayton. He should have had another big play if Jones isn't late on that play. But like that Jones late play, like that one bothers me. That to me, that's like the biggest issue with Daniel Jones is that the Steelers were doing exactly what I've talked about. It was like they trap, right? They trap those Wan'Dale choice routes. So start taking some shots of guys next to Wan'Dale because they're going to trap it on third down. 3rd and 3, they're expecting a Wan'Dale choice route. So they have that outside corner carry like he's going to carry a vertical and then slam down on the Wan'Dale choice, and it's there. And Aikman talked about it on the broadcast where it's like, you just got to be quicker with this. Like, if you're quicker with this is a nice chunk play, bing, bang, boom. Instead, you're,
you're punting the ball.
Yeah. So that's just where it is. Justin, why don't you talk to us about something?
I will. Do you want? Well, I don't. Are you ready to move to the defense yet, or?
I'm close. I mean, at what point does like the Malik Neighbors drops thing become like a real deal? Like just like this is a huge flaw with this player
until he doesn't do it anymore, because it kind of is a story of his rookie season right now. It is.
Yeah. I think it becomes a real because he's obviously phenomenal. 7 for 71 on 13 targets isn't amazing, but like we know he's a phenomenal player. Honestly, I don't think it becomes a huge thing until the Giants are actually competitive, because you remember like Odell had some drops, but like what's the game where we remember the drops? The playoff game.
The playoff game.
So I think that's when it starts to turn. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't really have much else on the again, Brian Dable, like this is one of my worries with Brian Dable since the start. In 2022, when it's good, I was like, it's awesome. I think he can call a decent offense. But my worry is there's not attention to detail. There's sloppiness, and that shows up. Like that is, we'll talk about with the Deontay Bank. Like that showed up. Their lack of attention to detail, sloppiness, that A11 bullshit, galaxy brain, like that that type of stuff matters. Like, that really does separate good coaches from great coaches and average coaches from good coaches.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just two other notes that I want to include. Giants did have 10 plays of 15-plus yards. It helps when you start running the ball a little bit. You know, I thought they actually had 4 plays of 25 plus. No, I'm sorry, they had 5 plays of 25-plus yards because they had 2 runs and then 3 throws. That's not something I was fully expecting against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Theo Johnson. Want to give a little shout out to Theo Johnson because I think he had 2 plays this game. I think he had a nice little screenplay, nice little check down in the short part of the field where he makes a couple guys miss and it goes for a nice gain and may even went for a first down. That catch down the seam was an awesome catch. I thought Jones should have maybe even put that a little back shoulder so the defender couldn't get it, but he didn't. So Theo Johnson goes up above the defender and makes a really nice catch.
Theo big.
I think that Theo should be involved more in this offense. I think it could add another wrinkle to this offense that teams aren't fully expecting yet. So
yeah, you got to trust him with his size, and I don't think Daniel Jones is the trust a tight end with his size type of quarterback. So
right,
yeah, but like you do, but when they've been forced to, you've seen it. Like, oh yeah, you can actually throw the ball to this guy, and he can make some plays with that 6'6" catch radius. So yeah. I like watching Theo Johnson whenever he gets an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Want to get him more involved. And we talked about the little things. The offense just isn't doing the little things right. Again, another 0 for 3 performance inside the red zone. Coming into tonight, they were 31st team ranked inside the red zone, and it only got worse tonight. So those are my notes.
Why don't you talk to us about something?
I'll talk to you about something. I'll talk to you about the Candlewick Diner. Of course, baby. Food. You want to know what I do after the Giants lose? I eat food. And I love going to the Candlewick Diner because today's episode is sponsored by the Candlewick Diner. It's the go-to place for pre- and post-game meals during Giants game days, and they've been serving East Rutherford, New Jersey. Did you know that that's where MetLife Stadium is? 55 years in East Rutherford, serving Giants fans for over 5 decades. And again, like, kind of crazy. We've been working with Candlewick Diner since 2021. Since Giants fans were allowed back in the stadium after COVID, after 2020. We've been working with Candlewick Diner since then. Homegrown partnership with us, Talking Giants of the Candlewick Diner. They're located just a mile up the road from MetLife Stadium. How convenient. Full-service bar, in-house bakery, and free delivery. I love me some desserts. And they have an extensive menu from breakfast and burgers to steaks to pasta. Check out the Candlewick Diner in East Rutherford, New Jersey for all your diner favorites. Find Manny, find the owners, tell them that I sent you, and you'll be glad you did, Bobby Skinner.
We love Candlewick Diner. You truly will be glad you did. I'm excited to get up there for the Bucks game and go to Candlewick Diner because we finna do that. I should never say that again. Not the Candlewick Diner part, but the finna part. Yeah. I've used it in the past, but maybe it's passed me by.
We finna talk about the defense right now.
Finna talk about the defense. Do you want to talk about the defense or Deonte Banks first?
Let's talk about Deonte Banks first. Benching justified or unjustified in your opinion?
I mean, I don't think there was a lack of effort. So Deonte Banks told reporters that, like, Dable told him he needs to do a better job of tackling. I didn't see a lack of effort from Deonte Banks. I know that he went low on the Najee Harris play, but that's like what corners. Like, do you really want him just squaring up Najee?
Okay, but you can't put your head down. I mean, this is Pop Warner stuff. And I'm not questioning effort on that particular play, but you can't. You're told in Pop Warner, when you're going to tackle somebody and you put your head down and you put the crown of your helmet down to tackle somebody, that's a no-no. You don't do that in football, and that's exactly what he did. Exactly what he did.
Why didn't it happen in the beginning of the game? That's
a great question. If you were this close, if you were that close to benching him, then right, why did that not happen?
Because he didn't play over half of the game. And he'll be good to go next week. He'll start next week. But man, I want to feel better about the Deonte Banks draft pick, and it seems like every passing week I feel worse about it. And when that happens midway through year 2, it usually doesn't get much better.
And when the saving grace talking point is he's going to be better when the Giants get a CB1. That's been our saving grace talking point, is that, oh, well, some of the advanced stats have been good. The average separation's pretty decent. But, dude, that first of all, I think that George Pickens catch, I think he got 2 feet down.
What
Am
are you
I
talking
wrong
about?
on that?
No, he got his left foot down twice.
I thought he got the other foot down.
He didn't. It wasn't even close.
All right, then I gotta watch it again. I gotta put my glasses back on and watch it again. But that's even an example of a play where I don't even think I'm nitpicking there. Bill Belichick was talking about this on the Manning cast, so I feel a little bit better about this. That's a play where Deonte Banks needs to go after. He needs to go in for the hit, and he needs to dislodge the football. So that's another play where it's like, dude, there's just a zero.
He did go for the hit. He pushed him out of bounds. But yeah, he doesn't go for the play. He has no ball skills.
You have to dislodge the football in that situation. Do you agree?
Yeah, you need to go it's right there. Go for it. Like that's the play to be made right there. He just doesn't have the ball skills. And I don't think they're ever going to be there.
Just no awareness.
Which to me limits him to a cornerback too. And hey, you can be happy with that 2 years from now. Right now, after trading up for one spot in the first round on him, I feel a lot worse about that. So like you just have to, and it was a good instinctive play too, right? Like it was cover 2. He's the low man. They run a high-low concept. He gets in it, but just make a play on the football. Like it wasn't him. He wasn't the reason. Pickens got that ball in his hands. It was on Jason Pinnock. But make a play on the football. But at the end of the day, he does push that out, and it's not a touchdown. 2 Pickens touchdowns weren't counted. But yeah, it's just he doesn't win consistently against, wide receiver ones win consistently against him. Then you're having this lack of run defense. Forget even bad effort. Let's say this effort gets better. This was the Warriors. He can tackle well when he has the opportunity to square up, but he's not a good run defender. He doesn't get off blocks well. He fills the lane wrong. And I remember that showing up at this is the type of stuff that showed up at Maryland too. So it's just he'll play next week. The Giants are a better team when he's starting there, despite the fact that Greg Stroman is a superstar in the making. How about Armand Watts tackle for a loss?
My new favorite player, by the way.
I don't see this Banks situation being the thing this is I know people are dying for not people, media, for locker room, because at this point the only thing that will get clicks is chaos at this point. Winning is the ultimate click getter, but once it's over, it's okay, well, does this fall apart? I don't see the Banks shit being the thing that makes the locker room fall apart, but I just think losing is going to be tough. But the defense, the defense held the Steelers to 19 points on offense, which is good.
One more thing on Banks, but I am with you in asking, well, what necessarily, besides Dexter Lawrence did call out, hey, we maybe want to see more effort from Deonte Banks on that incomplete pass. But they didn't necessarily call out per se or at least I didn't see it any of the players maybe call out the lack of tackling on Najee Harris there. But I am wondering, why was it not the actions last week that resulted in the benching? Why was it specifically tonight? Because that wasn't, I really don't think it was an example of effort. I think that was just an example of Deonte Banks not being a good football player. You know what I mean? That's what showed up tonight. It wasn't necessarily a lack of effort. So unless they just benched him because they viewed him
I also don't think Banks is a fuckhead either, by the way. There's a difference between guys who are just total dickheads. And
I'd agree with that.
Banks has never given me those vibes at all. Not at all. Where it's okay, he can be a real problem. I've never seen that with him. But he did give lack of effort and, two of their previous 3 games. But the real issue with Banks to me is I'm not worried about Banks' effort going forward. I'm worried about his lack of ability to be a cornerback 1 in the NFL. Yeah. I don't view him as this guy who turns into this team cancer and is consistently quitting. I actually do think this past week of the scrutiny and the shitting on him, I do actually think that got to him a little bit. Not to say he won't ever have a lapse like that for the rest of his career, but I don't think he's this team divider bad guy. I just think he gave up on some plays. But my worry about Banks is his lack of ability to be a cornerback 1, not his effort.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just very curious timing on the Giants' end on why was it the second half of this game and not the first half of this game?
Because Dable gets fed up in the moment.
Yeah.
And then Monday morning comes around and it's like, all right, how do I win the game though?
Yeah.
Like not playing Deontay Banks with Flott and Adoree Jackson injured does not help me win this game. Yeah. So I'm going to play Deontay Banks. Yeah. Same with the Daniel Jones Drew Lock thing last week, where it's like I'm frustrated. I'm putting Drew Lock in. Drew Lock stinks it up. Like I think I'm going to start Daniel Jones this week.
And one of the things that I think we just have to understand is Dable just is not going to give us anything in the media. Like
I disagree. I mean, today with Daniel Jones, he gave us a lot.
Well,
I mean, he threw him totally under the bus.
And that's what I don't understand about being. Again, that's what I don't understand with
he doesn't
Banks.
The reason why I threw the Banks thing is like he's trying to protect the player. The reason why I threw Daniel Jones under the bus is because he didn't want a week of, why didn't you chip TJ Watt on third down?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like he's like, he didn't want to take the heat for that decision when it wasn't his fault. When it was
especially
Daniel
because
Jones'
he's the offensive coach and he's the offensive play caller.
Exactly. If that was if that was like the equivalent of a defensive thing where it's like, why didn't you double Justin Jefferson on that play? And it'd be like, that's just, we'll look at the tape. That was one play where he's like, I'm not taking the heat for not chipping TJ Watt on this important down.
That's a good point. Usually 95% of the offensive answers really
which is not great leadership, by the way, no matter how mad people will get because it's like everyone wants Daniel Jones out and gone. That is bad leadership because you can tell, like the people who make the decisions, your owner and GM will find out that wasn't on Brian Dable on that situation, and that's not a play that's gonna, that's not a play that's going to make the decision of John Mara deciding to fire guys or not. So, like, as much as people hate it, that's bad leadership by Brian Dable.
Yeah.
The defense only held them to 19 points. And again, without Deontay Banks, no Cordell Flott, nor Day. I mean, they were playing Drew Phillips on the out because Steelers getting a lot of heavy personnel, so Drew Phillips is on the outside a good bit, and then Greg Stroman. Who would have thought that signing would have made such a, high impact? So the Giants went a little more zone heavy. The real killer is the run game, because the first 3 drives they handed the ball off 13 times for 101 yards. So the last 8 drives they handed off 15 times for 55 yards. So they got better. And I don't think it was really like anything scheme related with Shane Bowen. I actually thought it was mostly Bobby Okereke. Like, Bobby Okereke had some really bad run fits early in the game, then the DBs weren't great, and then you saw Okereke start to bounce back and make some stops, and as the game got rolling, Dexter Lawrence was making plays, Armon Watts made a tackle for a loss. But this was the first game where I was really paying attention to the Giants' run defense, because I knew it wasn't good, but like the good teams have done really good, and then the teams like the Bengals and the Cowboys haven't tried to run. This was the first team where they run a lot, but they're not very good at it. And I've paid attention to a lot of Steelers this year because of Football Today. This was their best rushing effort of the year. The Giants are the worst in rushing yards per carry. This is one of the things about hiring Shane Bowen was the run defense. The run defense has been really bad.
Well, this is also the last 2 defensive coordinators that have previously had legitimately, and I'm not even being sarcastic, legitimately have ranked number 1 in the NFL before in run defense. Starting to think it's not just the defense coordinators, Bobby. Starting to think it's a front thing and it's a personnel thing. And the Giants just, have not invested, besides Dexter Lawrence, they have not invested in defensive tackles at the rate that I think they should. Think defensive tackle has somehow become an undervalued and an underrated position. I mean, when's the last time that they drafted a defensive tackle on day 1 or day 2? I mean, forget day 1, even like day 2 in rounds 2 or 3, right? Dex and what else was I gonna say? And also edge rushers that valuing edge rushers that can maybe even set an edge and stop the run as well. They don't really have that on their roster. I'm not even talking about their starters to be awesome at it, but if you know that your starters aren't going to be awesome at it, maybe invest in some edge rushers that can set an edge on the back end as backups that can maybe come in on those rushing downs against teams that like to run the ball a lot. So I'm starting to think 2 defensive coordinators in a row that literally have pedigrees and backgrounds of being number 1 in the league at stopping the run, and then they come to the Giants and they become the worst. So I don't know, connect the dots.
There is ways to, overcome personnel, but like they're a bad run defense, and they do play a little bend don't break. Today's episode is brought to you by Pickett. Pickett is a free bet tracker that allows you to see all your bets in one place. The app tells you which teams, players, and bet types you are most profitable on. For example, Pickett made me realize I never hit on the Bears. I'm so bad at picking the Bears. Like I always believe I need to stop taking them seriously. You also can see your friends' bets. And I see Justin's bets, and I'm like, oh man, I went 6-2 in spread picks this week. Justin, I'm tied with him, so I'm doing better than him. Jolly, another 500 week. How about that, listeners? I'm catching up. So it's on the app to easily tail or fade us. Pickett is a great way to track what sports or players you're up or down on. The historical context Pickett provides is invaluable. We've got our calendars on screen. You should take a look at yours. How about that? Download the Pickett app now with code JOHNBOY to get $3 or $100 sent directly to your PayPal or Venmo. Either scan the QR code on the screen or head to pikkit.com today. That's pikkit.com. It's not spelled like Kenny Pickett because this is good. I'll be glad you did.
How did I do in fantasy this week? That's what I really want to know.
I think you probably had the best outing of the. Actually, you know what? I'm saving for the preview pod. People have to listen to the preview pod.
I'm so excited for it because I took Calvin Austin with my last pick.
I did good. Should I count the special teams touchdown?
I thought you did. Like they counted in regular fantasy. I mean
they do. They do. I just want to make you sweat a little bit. Yeah, it's just they're a good pass rushing unit. They stunt. Azeez Ojulari, he bent the edge for a sack. He got one on a stunt. Azeez Ojulari is going to get 10 sacks this year, which is, going to be like, we were talking about like guys that the Giants may have to retain. Ojulari is the one where his injury history stops me from like banging the table, like figure out a way to keep Azeez, but like he's playing really well.
He has 6 on the year?
I don't know.
Let me check that right now. Because he had 2 tonight. Yes, he has 6 on the year through 8 games, and he's only started 3 of them.
Yeah, they had 4 sacks tonight. They're leading the league in sacks. Dexter Lawrence was straight dominating. I mean, just his first half highlights were other top defensive tackles in the NFL's best game highlights. Burns made plays. Like this pass rush continues to like get there. They weren't perfect on third down, but the pass rush is living up to what we were hoping for when we were worried after the first few games that it wasn't going to.
Officially, the most sacks in a season for Azeez Ojulari since his rookie year, where he had 8. So this probably will be a career year for Azeez Ojulari. Brian Burns, did he have a full sack tonight? Yes, he did, right? It was kind of a Dexter Lawrence cleanup. Play. So it's Brian Burns' 5th sack on the year. And he had 3 QB hits, according to the Pro Football Reference, so he is up to 11, so he's in double-digit QB hits. And Dexter Lawrence officially has the most tackles for loss in his career. He had 1 tackle for loss tonight. The last 3 or 4 years, he had 7 in a row, all 7s, lucky 7s. He gets the 8th tonight. That is officially a career high for him. He is only 8 games in to the season. So there's your Giants pass rusher stat update stuff.
Yeah. And it's just with Dex is nuts. If the Giants were good, he'd be actually making a defensive player of the year. Like he balls on prime time too. The guy I'm interested to go watch the film back on is Drew Phillips because I've been singing his praises. He obviously had his worst game, was smoked by Calvin Austin for that 29-yard touchdown. The advanced numbers have him at 7-7 for 125 yards when targeted. Oh. Obviously it was his worst game, but I'm interested to see how the film looks consistently. But I think the Giants were just outmatched. Jimmy's and Joe's versus their secondary, which the Steelers would never have that. But their offense wasn't like this well-oiled machine in this game. They got basically the run game in the beginning of the game, and then they had the big plays. Pickens, had the big play, that led to a field goal. You had 2 big plays with Van Jefferson and Calvin Johnson on the touchdown drive. It was basically third down, Russell Wilson just throwing it up and those guys making plays on the football. Darnell Washington manned up on Jason Pinnock. He falls down and makes a play.
Yeah, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plays of 26 plus yards. They had 6 plays. They had 7 plays of 17 plus yards. So that's the big play kind of gets them again, man.
Well, especially when they were playing. They were playing Andrew Phillips on the outside and Greg Stroman on the outside. It's at points in this game.
Yep.
And Nick McLeod, gave up the big play to Van Jefferson. Like they're playing bad corners. Like that's just the reality. So like I'm not the biggest Shane Bone guy in the world, but I can't be mad at him at those guys making plays. They adjusted and played more zone. They didn't man up all game. They tried to play against Russell Wilson's weaknesses, and guys just showed up. They held them to 19 points. You were really good in the red zone. They're a top 5 red zone defense. But the run game is the thing that worries me long term with this Giants team, because there needs to be a real effort to get this better. But
yeah.
All right, Justin, why don't we end this damn episode?
We'll end the damn episode. One other thing that I want to add, the only other frustration I had is because we will see this against the Commanders next week. They're the first Azeez Ojulari sack that results in a 3rd and 12. They throw a little screen to Pat Freiermuth. He gets a first down. I mean, you just got to reward yourself. You got to reward yourself on getting in a 3rd and long situation. This defense does do a good job of, if they do get in a 3rd down situation where they're throwing the ball. Like, I actually am pretty confident. I'm like, I feel like the Giants defense can get a sack here, which is a nice position to be in as a Giants fan, because it's kind of a flashback to what we did about a decade ago, and maybe even a little bit before that, right? Where it's a 3rd down and you just know your pass rushers can square off. So I like that the defense is back at that point, but if you're in a 3rd and 12, don't shoot yourself in the foot by allowing a screen for a first down. And two of the things that we know the Commanders are going to do next weekend is they're going to run the damn ball, and they're going to run it well. And they're going to throw screens on 3rd downs to try and catch the Giants, try and catch them off guard. So that's what the Commanders are going to do next weekend, and that's what the Steelers did at times tonight. How do you like that?
Yankees suck. All right, we'll be back on Thursday for a mailbag pod. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.